State of Qatar's Foreign Minister Mohammed Abdulrahman Al Thani on Wednesday said he appreciated the state of Kuwait's Emir Sheikh Nawaf Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah big efforts to iron out the rift and reunify the Gulf states. Gulf leaders signed a solidarity and stability agreement towards ending tensions at the GCC summit. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary General Antonio Guterres lauded the role played by the state of Kuwait in mending the Gulf rift and also commended the final statement which came out of the GCC summit held in Al Ula of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The European Union also welcomed today the outcome of the Gulf Cooperation Council summit, saying it would strengthen regional stability. The Islamic Republic of Iran denies it is using a South Korean ship and its crew as hostages after seizing the tanker in the Gulf while pressing a demand for Seoul to release billions in funds frozen under US sanctions. The seizure of the ship and its 20-member crew near the strategic Strait of Hormuz has been seen as an attempt by Tehran to assert its demands just 2 weeks before President-elect Joe Biden takes office in the United States. Iran wants President-elect Biden to lift sanctions imposed by outgoing President Donald Trump. A new Venezuelan parliament was sworn in Wednesday with President Nicolas Maduro's party in firm control and opposition leader Juan Guaido officially without a job, but with foreign backing to keep up a parallel legislature. A total 256 of the National Assembly's 277 seats are in the hands of President Maduro's United Socialist Party of Venezuela and its allies after December 6th elections boycotted by the opposition. The chamber, which has a 5-year mandate, previously had an opposition majority with Guaido as its speaker since 2019. Guaido, now officially out of a job, has plans to maintain a parallel parliament of shadow opposition lawmakers. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has hinted that he wants to redesignate Cuba as a state sponsor of terrorism, a late-term move that would pile pressure on the communist island. In an interview released Wednesday, the U.S. official confirmed that the State Department was looking at taking the major step before he leaves office on January 20th, throwing a wrench into any diplomatic outreach to Cuba by President-elect Joe Biden. Secretary Pompeo pointed to Cuba's staunch support for Venezuela's leftist leader Nicolas Maduro, whom President Donald Trump's administration has unsuccessfully tried to oust, saying Havana has caused massive pain in the economically ravaged South American nation. Despite growing pressure from President Donald Trump to help overturn his election loss, Vice President Mike Pence plans to stick to his ceremonial duties and not interfere with the election certification when presiding in Congress on Wednesday. President Trump ramped up pressure on the Vice President on Tuesday to block Congress certification of the November election results in an ongoing attempt to stay in power after dozens of lawsuits by his campaign challenging election results failed in U.S. courts. But the Vice President has no plans to attempt to do so, even as he seeks to show support for the Republican president's quest. A spokesman said on Wednesday George W. Bush, the only living Republican former president, will attend the inauguration of Joe Biden later this month. According to his chief of staff, Mr. Bush, who left office in 2009, will be accompanied by his wife Laura. The couple had gone to inaugurations of Mr. Bush's successors, Mr. Barack Obama and President Donald Trump. It remains unclear whether outgoing President Trump, who continues to insist without evidence that widespread fraud denied him re-election, will appear at the event on January 20th. Georgia officials counted the final vote of the nation's turbulent 2020 election season early Wednesday as polls closed in two critical races that will determine control of the U.S. Senate and, in turn, the fate of President-elect Joe Biden's legislative agenda. The two Senate runoff elections are leftovers from the November general election when none of the candidates hit the 50% threshold. President Donald Trump encouraged his loyalists to turn out in force even as he undermined the integrity of the electoral system by pressing unfounded claims of voter fraud to explain away his own defeat in Georgia. As of Wednesday morning, it was too early to call the close races. As many as 50 Hong Kong opposition figures were arrested Wednesday under a new national security law in the largest operation yet against Beijing's critiques, deepening a crackdown favoring the financial hub. The latest police operation comes as China stamps out opposition to its rule in the semi-autonomous business hub after millions hit the streets in 2019 with huge and sometimes violent democracy protests. Opposition figures and parties took to their Facebook and Twitter accounts to confirm at least 21 arrests, most on a charge of supervision. Tokyo reported a record 1,591 new coronavirus cases on Wednesday as Japan's government faces increasing pressure from health experts to impose a strict state of emergency for the greater metropolitan area. Rising infections have driven the Tokyo and surrounding areas to the highest level of a 4-stage alert, prompting regional governors to urge for a declaration of emergency that Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga is expected to announce on Thursday. The Health Ministry held a meeting of infectious disease experts on Wednesday, the second in as many days. They have called for stricter and longer countermeasures, while Premier Suga has sought a more limited response to avoid damaging the economy. Thailand reported 365 new coronavirus infections and 1 death on Wednesday, bringing its total to 9,331 cases and 66 fatalities since it first detected the virus early last year. The new infections included 16 cases imported from abroad and found in quarantine, the government's COVID-19 task force said at a news briefing. France has vowed to speed up the administration of COVID-19 vaccines following widespread national outrage over the government's slow vaccination campaign. In a significant reversal of their approach, the authorities in Paris have announced plans to open up to 600 vaccination centers throughout the country and offer free jabs to anyone aged 75 and above. The authorities explained that the chief reason for this low performance is deep-seated suspicions among ordinary French citizens about the vaccine's safety. Minister for COVID vaccine deployment Nadhim Zahawi said on Wednesday British Prime Minister Boris Johnson's aim to vaccinate around 14 million of the most vulnerable people against COVID-19 by the middle of next month is achievable. Premier Johnson has set a target of vaccinating the elderly, including care home residents, the clinically vulnerable and frontline workers, around 14 million people by mid-February. Asked if it was achievable to vaccinate 14 million people by the middle of February and 2 million vaccinations each week by the end of this month, the minister said it was.